James joins us from DC to talk the Newcastle Takeover and Steve Bruce's future with the club, even though the morning after this recording, his tenure ended with Newcastle. Either way, we'll talk the future of Newcastle United, the rest of the league's reaction to new sponsorship that the Saudi group looks to bring in, and potential players that will, at the very least, keep them from being relegated this season. We're down here in the Rat Tail Bunker and Barbershop Studio, and this is the Boys In Bolos podcast. Welcome back to the Boys In Bolos podcast. We're down here in the barbershop, as that's confirmed 100%.
Nice intro, guy.
Thank you. Well, we've got Jarrett here, of course, as always.
Here I am.
Here, I'm looking right at you.
Yep.
In the flesh. And James Howes is back.
I like how you use his full name.
Well, I mean, people need to know. I mean,
full name.
James, welcome.
James, welcome.
Thank you. It's good to be here. Yeah, so I'm a Newcastle fan, and so the last week has been a little bit, or 2 weeks, I suppose, has been a little bit busy. So I thought I'd reach out. Jarrett was like, if you need anybody to talk about this, I might have some things to say.
Yeah, we thank you for that, because as a Spurs fan and a Chelsea fan, we're more London-centric, and I'm sure that that's probably not cool, but I think we tend to gravitate to what's going on in London, and like the fact that Arsenal, had they had lost this past week, would have been the worst team in London in the Prem. But anyway, neither here nor there. It was super cool that you reached out, because this is something that is going to continue to develop and probably change the dynamic in which the Premier League moves forward. I mean, I can see a future where, well, actually, James, do you think it's unreasonable as we look down 5 years that Newcastle is trying for a Champions League spot, or even next year? Like, how quickly do you think this snowball goes downhill?
Well, so it's going to take five. Firstly, and we'll come to it in a second, it depends on how much the other teams really let things happen, which is just coming out today. And then also, there's so much that needs to be done that it's going to take, so our current esteemed owner, Mike Ashley, who was there for 13 or so years, and he just over 13, and he really just didn't invest particularly anything. So his main concern was just trying to keep us on the gravy train of being in the Premier League as a money thing. Newcastle has a very, very strong fan base because it's a one team city, big ground. He could make enough money to cover the costs and then didn't care about investing. So behind the scenes, things have been slipping for a long, long time. Not just the playing staff, but also like our training ground is absolutely terrible. Like it's awful. So you know, like things like that need to be updated if you're going to really challenge for anywhere near the title. And our youth development sucks. So all of these different pieces go into it. Like, though we may have money, you can't just buy a team that quick. So it's going to be a 5 to 10 year project. But Saudi Arabia didn't get involved in this to not be successful, right? This whole thing is about improving their image, and they don't improve their image if the team sucks. So
my thing is I was kind of echoing that when I first talked about it. I don't think it's like a next year, 2 years type of. It's like a 5 to 10 year thing, because it's also like you want to be able to attract players, and so you want to be able to bring people into Newcastle over time, and as a place to live and a place to spend time, you know. And so there's got to be like actually infrastructure investment in the city, in the stadium, in the place that people are going to be going. I think there's a lot more to it than just, you know, buying 5, 6, 7 players and suddenly they're in the Champions League. I think that this season they need to focus on their squad. The squad is I mean, after watching the center backs play this past Sunday, you can tell that they need 1 or 2 players this offseason. I mean, this January transfer window to keep them in the Prem.
That's conservative.
I mean, we need, yeah. I mean,
that's but to stay up in the Prem. I mean, to not have to worry about relegation this season, right? And so that's the last thing I think this ownership group wants, is like, you know, to deal with the championship. So, you know, stay in the Prem, start building something, get some young players in, some fringe players in, to build something.
What do you think? Yeah, so we've asked long term, and I think totally it's a project that's the long con, right? It's like in 10 years, how do we turn this into a competitive club, probably on the European stage? I think it will take maybe less than that. City, it took a little bit less than that to somehow, find your way into the top 4 and then get competitive from the year that they were bought out. Chelsea were bought in 2003 and shortly thereafter started winning the Premier League and then also were in knockout rounds of the Champions League. I think it will take longer now that there's just so much more money in the Premier League. There's 5 or 6 or 7 clubs that just have a lot of money behind them. But focusing, we've talked about the long con, but let's go back to where Jeff was and keeping up in the Premier League. If you are running the club, James, which maybe you are, I don't know, what are you doing in the January transfer window to ensure, as Jeff said, that the club stays up? Because it would be very, very bad if Newcastle were to be relegated. And I will say I picked Newcastle to be relegated this year, which I don't think is a bad thing to have said, looking at the squad that they currently have, if there's not an injection of capital and a new energy. So going into January, 2 questions, right? Like, what are the players you want to bring in, and what are the players also, like the players that you think you can bring in? Ideally, they're the same player. And then what are you doing with Steve Bruce? The guy just had his 1,000th game. He's been around English football for 46, 47 years, almost half a century. Is he the guy to keep you up, or are you already going to go get some like sexy other European manager?
Or Frank Lampard.
Or Frank the Tank.
So this is one of the things that's immediately happened, right? Every agent in the world is talking to the press, like talking up their guy as being, like Frank Lampard, Wayne Rooney, Paulo Fonseca, like the amount of people who've been linked to a job which isn't even open yet is insane. Bruce needs to go. He's had a long record, but the players aren't playing for him. He was a defender. He was played for Man United, won the league. He was a great defender. And yet our defense on Saturday, like you were saying, okay, those players aren't the best players, but basic things like the Kane goal where it looked like he was offside. You can't even just be in, like, you're not organized in a line. The amount of times players were like in just situations they shouldn't have been because there was just so much space between the midfield and the defense. The organization isn't there. So either they're not being organized or they're not listening to the manager. Those are the manager will go. It's how long they let that go for. And it depends on, like, going back to like the City thing. City built a structure eventually. Like initially they tried to buy big names and then they started realizing you got to build a structure. And I don't really, it's how desperate is it right now? Like, is it bad enough where you bring in a manager just knowing that guy's just there to survive, keep you up? Or do you try and bring in a director of football who's got a longer term vision on it? And then the manager's got to go under that, right? Because that's got to be your focus, right? I don't know which they're going to do. If I were them, I think that realistically this year is just about surviving. And we got a tough run of games, the next like 5 games. Palace look good. That's our next game. Like, I don't know if you guys have seen much of Palace this year, but like they've actually been playing some really nice football. So and then several of the bigger boys we got to play. So like, you can't get to January where you're so far behind that you can't possibly make catch up. So that's why I feel like they got to try and get rid of him. There is an international break coming up, so there is an opportunity for a new manager to have some time on the training field because we don't have a lot of international. We've got to get, realistically, at least one defender in the January window, somebody in the midfield who can provide some other threat and join things up. Because our plan right now is give the ball to Saint-Maximin and hope he does something. And he's great. I love Saint-Maximin, but it's pretty easy to defend if all you got to do is close out one player. And then like Wilson is a great striker, but he doesn't make things happen on his own. He's one of those players who's there to pick things up in the box. So, and our biggest problem is that between the couple of attacking threats we have ball winning players like Hayden and Longstaff, but they don't have any creative midfielders. Who's available? I don't know. Chelsea aren't really going to need Barkley all the time. Like somebody like that would be a good idea for like somebody in the, like, right? Like for you guys, it's like an offshoot, but like somebody like that could provide some link between like the defense and the going forward. We just need somebody in the midfield, at least a couple of defenders, and then another threat to take off the load off St. Maximan. Yeah,
Van de Beek.
Who?
Van de Beek.
Exactly. Well, we've been talking on the pod that this is exactly what Newcastle should do. They just go around and they find players that aren't getting run, but maybe that should be getting run. You get Van de Beek, you get Martial, you get Barkley. You basically go to the top clubs and you just get them on loan. Just get them to the summer. Because I think that that's just got to be the play. Stay up, survive, and then this summer is a really unique summer because there's no Copa America, there's no Euro Cup, there's no Gold Cup, there's no Nations League, none of that shit. It was supposed to be the World Cup, but FIFA and the geniuses that they are decided to put that in the middle of next winter. So all clubs are going to have like a really like lull hiatus. I know that Argentina's playing Italy in whatever that thing's going to be called, the handgesturecup.com. But there's going to be a great time for clubs this summer to kind of slow down, get some time off, like get their big players actual time off, which I just don't think they've had in probably since the restart maybe. Focusing though on the manager, who do you think? I agree with you. I think they need to stop the bleeding tomorrow or even yesterday because you don't want to get to January where you're already so much in a divot. And Crystal Palace is playing well. I don't understand it, but they're playing well. So who are you bringing in as manager if you had to choose? Is it Rooney? Is it Lampard? Is it Fonseca? Like who's the hat? Who's the rabbit in the hat?
Well, I mean, like the people who I've not been impressed particularly like with a lot of the names that are linked. Rooney just doesn't. I mean, what's he done really? Nothing at Derby. Lampard, what did he do really? Not that much at Derby. And then like other than names, I don't really get. There was talk of Steven Gerrard. I don't think he'd leave Rangers, but he's doing a good job at Rangers. I think he strikes me as a club figure who could actually do something. I think it needs to be somebody who has more proven record than a couple of those guys that they're on about. Like, I don't know how much truth there's in this, but like Lucien Favre has been linked. I think that wouldn't be a bad guy to get in. Ralph Rangnick has been linked as like a lot of stuff in Germany and has really built some great teams. So I think like those type of guys, I'd be much more interested in if they could be persuaded. But like, I don't know how much that's like just paper talk of just like there's money, there's a name that's not employed, you know, like, because I don't know whether you really want to be a part of this project right now or whether if you're one of those guys, you wait and see how it develops, right? Yeah.
What about Roberto Martinez? Is he still the Belgian coach?
Yeah,
and I asked that because, he's still the Belgian coach because he's now had multiple disappointing tournaments where they just have not figured it out. He had the World Cup where they finished fourth. He had the Euro Cup where they were super promising and they didn't. The Nations League where they just dropped the ball. And then just hearing all the quotes of KDB coming out being like, well, at the end of the day, we're basically just Belgium. Like, we can't do it. We can't get across the line. So I wonder at what point he transitions out of that and just leaves, because I think Newcastle could be it gets him back in the Premier League, a place where he's done okay. And I think it would be potentially a really good project for him. Jeff, is there any coach that like stands out to you other than Frank the Tank?
No, I think Steven Gerrard's the best choice right now. A guy who's familiar with the Premier League, had good success with Rangers. I mean, it's a one-club league, but still, Rangers he's been really successful there. It would be some positive press for Newcastle. I think like getting a British guy is he not British? Is he British? Yeah, he's British. Yeah, get a British guy into the team. You know, kind of like a, I don't know, not kind of not cult hero. He's just like
he's a cult hero, just not Newcastle's cult hero.
Not Newcastle's cult hero, but be some good press rather than bringing in another foreigner to a club who's now dealing with foreign ownership. My big thing with this team isn't necessarily. I don't they'll get relegated. In my mind, it's not really something that probably won't happen because there's worse teams. Because I think they'll make a few moves in January. That's my opinion. But my concern is like how do they move forward with the rest of the Premier League clubs being angry that this like ownership thing happened, right? So how do they get new sponsorship? How do they get new investment in the team? How do they sign players and from other teams in the Premier League? And how do they facilitate this given that they're owned by this Saudi group, right, with questionable ethics and morals and human rights records? And so how do they reconcile that moving forward?
James, can you break that down? I think it's a really good point. How the other 18 clubs, because I say 18 because today, PO clubs voted to block potential Newcastle United sponsorship, and they also put in the same thing for Man City. So Man City and Newcastle were kind of ostracized a little bit, kind of made pariahs of them, I guess you could say. So moving forward, thinking about Newcastle's position, I want to understand, how does Saudi Arabia, their prince, and Newcastle all now play a role? Because what's the relationship there? Because it feels weird geopolitically for a nation state like Saudi Arabia to own an English Premier League club. Now, what I've heard, and maybe please clarify this for me, but what I've heard is that they basically signed things that say, we as Saudi Arabia do not own the club. It is owned through this management company or something like that. Yeah. But in a state where everything is owned by the government, it's kind of like it's putting lipstick on a pig for me, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think they said that was the issue, and they said that it was the end of the clarification of that issue that caused this to go through. I don't really buy that. It was because the Saudis had been infringing on being sports copyright by allowing a group to pirate it, and in Saudi Arabia, being sports is a Premier League rights holder. Premier League wasn't going to countenance something until that ended, really. So that was as much of the issue. So it was that whole thing. They said they're going to stop blocking, allowing this pirating. They allowed being sports in Saudi Arabia on the Thursday, or was it the Wednesday? Whichever, it was a day, and then the next day the deal is announced. So and then they also said, oh, and by the way, it's not really the Saudi government. But I feel both, we know who these people are, who I mean, MBS isn't the type of guy who's a chilled out, relaxed guy who's just gonna say, oh yeah, it's not the way things go. And that's probably the reason why, it makes, as a fan, you uneasy, because I've gone through different feelings. I know a lot of people are just really, really happy because they think it's going to bring success. At what price? There's all those, then you get all down that route, right? Which we could talk about forever. And as a fan, I'm still not entirely sure how I feel about it.
People are just happy that Mike Ashley's gone, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're celebrating that right now, and they'll deal with the human rights stuff when we have to deal with the human rights stuff, right? So from the U.S. perspective, and we're no perfect country when it comes to any of that stuff. So I'm not gonna try to say that we're better or worse, anything like that. But there are definitely, it sounds like the vast majority of diehard Newcastle fans are happy that the Mike Ashley era is over. They're happy with that. That's the big thing. They're well, we're finally moving on. That's why they packed the stadium. That's why they're there's a really small subset who are horrified by it. And those are the ones that, are protesting with the signs, and they got that truck with the
with
Khashoggi on it, and that. And then there's people, I think maybe you fall in this category, who are iffy on it. They don't know what to make of it. They're well, let's wait and see what actually happens, because it's not over, right? So today, this thing happened with the blocking of the sponsorship, and it really does question how much club needs to move forward, right? This club needs to move forward with new owners. They can't block them forever from getting sponsorship, so there has to be some kind of reconciliation between, I don't know, something has to happen where they're allowed to move forward in some capacity. I don't know what that means. I think really what we want to see as fans is for financial fair play to actually be enforced, and not let clubs like City get away with it, because I think a lot of the outside fans, people who aren't City fans and maybe aren't Newcastle fans, who see what happened with City when they get penalized, is they just buy their way out of it. We don't really believe that there's going to be any financial fair play. We don't believe that. We always think that the numbers are going to get cooked and they're just going to be able to buy their way out of anything. So that's why I think for us, and I think for the other clubs are well, we want to stop them in their tracks, stop them before anything even starts.
The difficulty is that I don't see legally how they get out of the fact that they've already shot themselves in the arm over the whole of this. a bit like this, the complaints about human rights. It's like it's a slippery slope. Like, so you go from like Chelsea being bought by Abramovich, who has links to Putin, who has, you know, questionable record, but it's a guy. Oh, it's a yes, and then you get Abu Dhabi C, and oh well, you know, and it's just all like along the road, right? At what point do you stop things? Well, there's on the human rights front, that's one part of it, and then there's also on this sponsorship deal thing. Okay, so you can't, like, firstly, this has been going on for like years, right? This goes back, like, even when clubs were owned by local businessmen, the local businessmen would cook the books in a way, like when you could own a company, like you didn't have to be a sovereign wealth fund to own a Premier League company, when it was like, you know, back in the 60s, 70s, and you could just be a very rich individual in England and buy a team. They still would do certain deals like this to try and like to conceal money going into the club, right? And you look in the Premier League, like Man City's deal is not going to go with this, right? It's because they know that they would fall foul of the same problem, right? But even like somebody like Leicester, what's the name of their stadium? It's the King Power Stadium. Why? Because they're owned by a Thai company that makes King Power beer, right? It's so like, at what point is it okay for like all these companies, all these clubs are going to, I think, right? I agree with you that like in a perfect world, it would be more of an even basis, and there wouldn't be all these ways around financial fair play, whether it's PSG or Man City or Newcastle. But the clubs have gotten themselves in a difficult position because so many of them, I don't know how this legally will stand up if it's like in terms of competitiveness, and so when several of the clubs have already done similar types of deals, you know, I don't know, it's going to be a really
for me, you're exactly right. They've already allowed all this to happen with other clubs. They can't just suddenly say, oh, we're going to pump the brakes now. We got a financial fair play, no sponsorship for you guys. It's like, well, you've already gone down that path. You already made a deal with the devil. You've already
opened Pandora's box.
Yeah.
And it's like, somebody once said this is why you shouldn't gossip, because it's like, once you squeeze the toothpaste out of the container,
can't put it back in.
You can't put it back in. And so the cat's out of the hat, whatever analogy we want to use. Chelsea really kind of like laid the groundwork for how to do this, right? You have this rich billionaire, which you're totally right. He made his money in oil. And because he's Russian, everything is tied to the state, right? He knows Putin. Obviously, he's in the billionaire. So like, we already had people hanging out with bad actors on the world stage who were known bad actors who made their money vis-a-vis fossil fuels in a petro state, essentially. And so I think at the end of the day, money talks. And I think this summer, by the time you get to the summer, that sponsorship deal is totally going to go through, because the other clubs are going to be like, it's actually better that more money comes into the league. It makes it more competitive. Like, it's like a rising tide lifts all boats. So I have no problem with it. And as a Chelsea fan, I'm going to be mum on this, because I'm like, how do you think we have 2 Champions League? We have 2 UEFA Cups. We're going to be in the World Club Cup. We've won the Premier League like 5 or 6 times since the takeover. So I think it's really disingenuous for anyone else in the league to probably be against this on many ways, because every single club has some person who's rich, most likely a foreigner, who's made money, probably if you were to pull back all the layers of the onion, in not the most cool ways. But that's just kind of like really why I think the Premier League is so fascinating, because it's the amalgamation of like geopolitics and world economics wrapped in one.
Yeah, and it's like, and I don't want to like downplay. Like, I feel like some people think it's like, what about you when you bring up these questions? Like, oh, you're just trying to. I'm not in any way ever going to sit here and be one of these fans that I have seen online on Twitter and things, where they all of a sudden have a Saudi flag next to their icon. You know, like which, you know, there are fans that have done that. You know, there are people who are buying this whole thing. I'm not trying to like downplay anything that the Saudi government has done. I'm just saying that, like, it's so, like, even like a couple of Brentford, you think like, oh, it's a really nice, happy, you know, like story, like amazing that how they're outperforming what they do. But did they make, the guy made his money from betting, you know, like it, which is not a cool thing. So many people's lives get destroyed, especially in England right now. There's betting, and it's all of these questions that come up with it, and I feel like it also just shows up the hypocrisy, because I don't think that most fans of any team are really buying any of this as being anything other than teams trying to cling onto their position, especially when 4 of the teams that are doing this, whatever it was, 6 months ago, were willing to sell the whole rest of the league down the river in order to be part of the Super League. So like all of a sudden Spurs and Arsenal, we don't want, this is not a level playing field, but you were quite happy to go and be a part of this other, like they're all, yeah.
It's you're totally right. As soccer fans, as Premier League fans, football fans, we have elephants' long memories for what everyone else has done that's fucked up. But when we talk about what we've done, we're goldfish and we just forget about it. And so, okay, we've talked about the coach. Is there a player that you think in January could realistically come in to turn the ship? I think you probably need a center back. Maybe there's a center back on one of the top teams that's not getting enough play. Like, I think Van de Beek in the holding would be great, or just even in the attacking. He could be that link that you're talking about, because Callum Wilson's great. You put the ball in the box, 4 times, he's going to get onto it twice, probably on net, and one of them is going to go in. I mean, when the game started and he scored in the first 2 minutes, Jeff and I were texting. We weren't together to see that game. But that was impressive, and it was honestly cool to see Newcastle rocking, to see St. James rocking, because for a while it had been a little ominous.
Yeah, it's not been that. It's not been that place, right? I mean, I think it depends on the manager, right? Like, I would like. So, like, again, going to the Team Gerrard thing, one of the other advantages is that he has contacts at Liverpool, and Liverpool have some good young talent that needs places to go. Like, that's one thing. I mean, I know that they're actually ended up blooding several of those players this year, but I wonder whether there's that's an like, I think that they have I can't think of the guy's name. This is completely losing me. But yeah, they have some players that might be possible. I feel like the defense we need players with pace as part of the thing. That's the big thing that we lack in our defense. Like Clark and Lascelles just don't have the pace. So you're looking for a set centre back with a little bit of pace who can come in and make a difference. I also think, like, he's not at a top team, but whether, like, he's not necessarily, but like somebody like Mings, could you get Mings in from Villa? Like, could you like go to some of these clubs that are a little bit below, right? But they're in an economic situation. They'll have a price where they will sell. Like, that's the other option. Like, yeah.
I think your Barkley thing is spot on, because I think one of the reasons that Villa is struggling this year is because they don't have someone like Barkley to sit in the middle and kind of do stuff that isn't sexy, maybe doesn't always get the notoriety, but at the end of the day, he's technical, he's fairly strong, he's pretty quick. He could be a good fit. The other guys like Ruben Loftus-Cheek, I don't think he adds anything for Chelsea, only just because I think there are better players that we could play over him, because we have an embarrassment of riches currently. But like, if those 2 guys were to come in and given enough time, they could definitely help the whole, survive.
Definitely. Loftus-Cheek, I think, has really not got any kind of role particularly to play this year, right? And he would be he would definitely improve. Most people would improve our midfield. You guys might be able to get.
I wonder how much our transfer fee would be. It would probably be like $100.
I was reading some stuff about Spurs today, as I do, and there was like 7 players who could leave in the January transfer window, and I'm just gonna name off some names, and you can either agree with me or not agree with me. Center back, you could get Rodon.
Yeah.
Has pace.
Strong. Like
kind of a bonehead, but
that's fine.
It's fine.
Just need pace.
James
isn't asking for the complete player here.
Harry Winks. Holding in midfield.
Yeah.
Holding midfield.
It's nice. Homegrown.
You can go side to side and back really, really well.
Homegrown.
Yeah. Who's the other guy? Jack Clark. He was at Leeds last season.
Yeah.
I'm naming names.
I mean, I feel like they've been linked, and what do you call it? Tarkowski, can I pronounce his name? Burnley. He's a strong defender who would
Tarkowski?
Tarkowski, yeah, Tarkowski would be.
Oh yeah, he'd be good.
Lot like, and that actually is one of those ones where like I actually could see it happening pretty easily.
Because Burnley's going to get relegated. Is that why?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, because they need the money.
Like, realistically, I think you get to the point in January where Norwich is gone and Burnley are gone, and so really then you only need to you just got it's running away from the bear, and you only have to be like faster than one of the team, right? So it's not like that was the so like, I think that's a good place to go. I mean, like they were linked with, and I feel like would be an amazing sign by Donald happen from Sevilla, Jules Koundé, but who's
that would be a dream signing for you guys because he's been linked with Chelsea for a while, and I don't think he'd be cheap. So I think right off the bat, if you bought him, there would be big questions about financial fair play when you pull out a cool 40 million.
But like that's the thing. So they have 105 million to play with. Sorry, 100. No, it's a little more than that because Mike Ashley hasn't spent anything. They actually have it builds up as like a credit, so.
Sure. It goes over.
So yeah, so they do have a little bit of wiggle room with that. It's going to be a lot of loan signings as well. Like
I was going to say, I'm thinking loans.
I'm thinking for the.
I definitely would like Martial is like a player who I think it all depends. He's one of those players who I think if he got the confidence and got in the side and was really loved, I think he could do a good job as well. Like taking some of the because right now if Wilson isn't playing, we don't really have anything else, and Wilson gets injured a lot. So having some competition would be really great up front. But it's and they're going to need to get somebody off their payroll, Manchester United, because they have way too many players. I mean, it all depends on who's their manager come that time.
Yeah, maybe it would be Steve Bruce. I think I have two ideas for you. Number one, there's a savior. His name is Jesse Lingard. Just an idea. The other one, since you have 105 M's sitting around, maybe you go ahead and you buy Grealish off City because he's fairly useless for them. Just an idea. I think they might go for it. They made $5 million, sold some teas. Just an out-of-the-box idea. But anyway, if it's cool, let's look at the upcoming week. And we can even start with the Newcastle, good God. Newcastle Crystal Palace. See what I did there?
New Palace.
We'll start with the New Palace game. The Newcastle Crystal Palace game. What are you thinking about this one? Because honestly, Crystal Palace are playing some footy, and I'm impressed. And it's at Selhurst, aka AFC Richmond. So, are you gonna win that one, or what's the deal there?
I mean,
seeing a lot of confidence.
that's my short answer. I watched them against London's worst placed team almost on Monday, right? And they're
good.
They're good, and they have things that can hurt us, right? They hold the ball. I mean, we're not a possession-based team anyway, but they've got players with pace. I don't know if Eze will play, but Eze has pace. I mean, they've just got too much to hurt.
Yeah,
the exact right areas to hurt. So I can't see us get. If we got a point, that would be a really good point. Is the way I look at it. Yeah.
I mean, that player that the Palace picked up, Edouard. He's a player. Yeah. He's a good signing.
Baller.
Really good signing. Who's that guy? The blonde-haired kid, Chelsea guy.
You're talking about the pretty boy.
Yep.
Sunshine.
Looking
it up, boss.
They got some players. They're pretty good.
Conor Gallagher.
They got Vieira.
Yeah.
Manager.
I mean, they look good against Arsenal, and
they should have won that game.
They were at the Emirates.
That was.
And Zaha didn't even play. No Zaha, no goals, and I was very impressed. Now I can't tell whether that's Crystal Palace is good and Arsenal is just kind of like mediocre shit. But anyway, neither here nor there. I think that unfortunately you guys lose that game, and I'm sorry to have you on to tell you that.
No, I agree.
The next game I want to look at is Aston Villa Arsenal.
It's a Friday. It's
a Friday kickoff at 3 p.m., which I think would be fun. You know, we're gonna eventually get over to the the colonial father country, and that'd be fun to do a Friday
Friday
game.
Night Lights.
Friday Night Lights. Maybe we'll dress like Led
Yeah.
Tasso. So, what do you think in that Arsenal Aston Villa game? It's at the Emirates. Aston Villa really need a W here.
Villa are a weird team because they play some good football, and then on Saturday they just absolutely blew. I couldn't believe. I believe they blew that lead. Arsenal aren't very good, and I could see it being. I think it'll be a score draw, 2-2. That's what I'm going for.
That'd be a good game then. Jeff, you agree on that? I agree. 2-2 is what I was going to say.
I agree. This is two teams. This is at the 12th and 13th place team, and yep.
Oh my God, yeah.
And I don't see them jumping too many places in the table.
When you say them, you mean both teams. So they're just going to tie.
They're just going to tie and just kind of languish in the middle of the table.
You'll love to see it.
Yep.
The next game is Chelsea beating Norwich. By how many goals will this be, James?
6.
Jeez. No. I think you're honest, but here's the thing. Okay. I want to see if I can find a betting and just put $5 down on 6-0 because it will be like 1 in 30 of it happening. Because last week Jeff said that Spurs would beat who are y'all going to beat? Crystal Palace.
Newcastle.
Oh, you beat. He said Crystal Palace are going to be Spurs. Sorry, he said Spurs are going to beat Newcastle, and he said 3-2. And that was ridiculous. And they beat them 3-2. And if we had put money on that,
it was ridiculous because of the own goal, the dire own goal.
It was ridiculous.
And also that you didn't score more.
That's true.
Both things are ridiculous. So I feel like if you could find a line, if you're a bettor and you're listening to this, go 6-0 Chelsea Norwich because I don't actually think it's unreasonable. Chelsea could lay it on.
Every time Norwich come up, they just get hammered by all the big teams. It feels like they've already been hammered by Liverpool. Right. When they go away to that type of team, that I might be wrong, but I can see Chelsea just putting the hurt on.
I think so.
Yeah, I mean it's Stamford Bridge. I mean
it's at Stamford Bridge. And Lukaku hasn't scored because he can't score against big teams, so he's really looking for these games to pad his stats. Next game is Watford Everton. I've got Everton here. Watford are wonderful. Watford, they're horrible. I think that they're going to be in the relegation battle, and I like Everton. I think that they're a good team. Jeff, do you not? Okay, your face is telling me a different story.
You like Everton?
I've always liked Everton. I think they're kind of at home. They're so brutal to beat.
I like Everton
dude.
when Richarlison's not playing.
Richarlison-less Everton.
Yeah, I like Richarlison-less Everton. I like them more when DCL is playing, but he's been hurt. I think they got some interesting things going on, but they don't have a forward right now.
Interesting thing.
They do have a lot of injuries. Yeah.
Yeah, Rondon isn't a good forward. He doesn't do a lot. They got some things. I mean, James is gone.
Yeah.
James is gone.
Cancer on the team.
Good God, man. Who do you got, Jeff?
I think Everton will win this game. They're better. They're better than Watford.
They're better than Watford. Yeah.
That's it. I'm going to say
that's all we're saying. They're just better than Watford.
2-0.
I got 2-0. James?
Obviously, our former manager, Rafa.
He's everyone's former manager.
Yeah, but with us, there's another reason why where I think the Bruce thing falls down is that he can organize a defense. It's the one thing he can do. But with this type of game against Watford, I could see Watford aren't good, but Everton aren't good at attacking either. So it's going to be a really boring 1-0 Everton win, I guess. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
And they'll take it and celebrate accordingly.
Well, they did lose to West Ham last week.
Dude, West Ham beats everyone every once in a while.
Yeah, but it was at the end of the game. It was pretty rough.
It's pretty rough.
Yep.
Next game is Southampton-Burnley, and I will call this the prime candidate for the mini-back game of the week because this is going to be a gouge your eyes out. Make sure to turn your TVs off when this is on, people. I'm going to go with 0-0.
Yeah, let's just not even talk about it.
And one missed penalty for Southampton.
It's going to be
tough. That's my.
I'm still riding the Southampton getting relegated train.
I don't think it's unreasonable.
They'll be in the mix, but I think there's just too many bad. There's enough bad teams.
Yeah. There's enough sludge below them that they won't have to. I'm going 0-0 and a missed penalty to boot.
So we got next game.
Leeds Wolves.
Yep.
This is at Ellen Road. So Wolves obviously had that ridiculous comeback, and if you have not seen the Wolves Aston Villa game, you need to just go fire up YouTube and watch that because it's unreal. Wolves are doing
better.
currently much better. Leeds is a team that we've talked about recently because they're kind of surprising us because last season they started kind of the way Brighton Hove have started this season, just on the front foot, attacking, getting out, getting points where maybe you're surprised that they pick up the points that they're picking up. Leeds really need this, and they're at home. I'm thinking they win 1-0. James, what do you think?
Well, I mean, the thing with the Bielsa thing, right, is always there's a point where people just get tired of it, right? If you look at Bielsa's career in the past, that's the stereotype anyway. And this was their last game was the first time I was reading somewhere that they ran less than the opposition, which is an interesting stat. You know, Robert Plant's going to be a happy man on Saturday. He's a big Wolves fan. I'm thinking Wolves are going to win 2-1.
Jeff, you agree with him, right?
Wolves? Yeah, I would say that Wolves are putting things together a little better.
Putting things together. Your analysis tonight is
stellar.
They're doing things at Everton. They're just doing things.
They're making it happen. No, Leeds are having a tough time. Feel for them.
I agree, and I didn't know that stat, James. That's fascinating. That for the first time in many times they've run less, because Leeds has always been just like a high school track team that we call soccer teams in the United States, where there's just a bunch of athletes that just run you into the ground, knock it long, and eventually getting behind you long enough, they're going to score a goal or two because they have one skiller in the 9. And that's kind of how I feel about Leeds. And Leeds without Bamford, if you look like at the stats, is rough. So I'm not sure if he's going to play or not, but whenever you have one team that relies on one player, United, Ronaldo, they're basically shit. They just don't know it yet. So I'm being optimistic, but I'm going to look more into that stat because it's interesting to see maybe Bielsa's past his due date. The next game is Brighton Hove Albion and Manchester City. So Brighton Hove Albion have been overachieving, potentially, or maybe they're not. Maybe, I don't know.
Up until this past week, they have been.
They're sitting right now 2 points behind City with 15 points after 8 games, which I think is fairly impressive. So I don't really know. Is this at the Amex? I'm checking. This is at the Amex. James, what do you got?
Firstly, I didn't say this in the previous thing. He wouldn't leave right now, but I'd take Graham Potter, even though he's going to be in the next couple of years. He's going to get a big job. He's done a ridiculously good job there. It could go one of two ways. If City can score early, it's one of those ones where if City score early, I think they win a comfortable 3-0. But if Brighton can impose themselves the first 20 minutes, then I feel like it'll be a close game. So I'm gonna say what I hope happens. I hope it's a 1-1 interesting tie.
I think that Grealish is going to do more harm than good this game. He's going to try to hold the ball up, not allow for the kind of free-flowing City attack that can penetrate defenses, because I think Brighton can withstand a little bit of pressure and get organized in the back when Grealish does that. And they won't be and they can definitely win the ball off of Grealish. So I'm going to agree with you. I'm going to say 1-1 draw, and it's going to be a hard-fought draw for both sides.
The next 3 games are all potentials for
Game of the
weeks. They're going to just be fire. I think the lineups, I think the teams are going to be playing each other at the perfect amount of time. So the next game is Brentford-Leicester. Leicester just came back off Tielemans worldie, beating United, really putting Ole one more foot closer to an edge. And Brentford are just fun to watch. They're like Leeds from last year, except I think they have a lot more talent and an actual situation. They actually have something going forward. Is my take. Maybe I'm wrong.
They press really well.
They press really well, but they actually Ivan Toney's annoying. I wouldn't want to play him. So I don't really know. I'm gonna do a pass on this one and throw it to James. Brentford is gonna be at home. What are you thinking, James?
Well, they gave you guys a tough last 20 minutes.
Oh, they should have beat us. They should have beat us. And it was I follow Chelsea on Instagram, and they just kept putting all these things up of all these diving saves of Mendy. I'm like, don't share this shit. That just shows that our defense is shit. Our second defense is Swiss cheese. Don't show this. And they could be like, Mendy's a god. I'm like, I don't know. It's kind of whack. Whoever's running the Instagram clearly maybe doesn't know much about soccer, but they should have beat us or at least tied.
Yeah, definitely. I think Leicester's they're suited to play it though, because they play so quick on the break. So I'm thinking that they might just nick it 2-1. I'm saying Leicester 2-1.
I actually agree with that. Jeff, you agree?
Yeah. I guess the only thing that Brentford have going for them, and they're playing at home. They play well at home. But
12th man.
Yeah, 12th man. I think Madison's back now at Leicester, or at least he's getting time. It'll be interesting to see the lineup that goes out and plays on. I think they're playing a Europa League game on Thursday. That's why they're playing Sunday. So there's gonna be some player management on that aspect. So we'll see if it's the strongest Leicester squad out there against Brentford. I think they have to. If they were looking at this on paper at the start of the season, they probably wouldn't. They probably would play their strongest squad Europa and then rest a few guys for the Brentford game. But now that teams have to respect Brentford, so we'll have to see how that plays out. I think, but I still think that Leicester have a lot of quality and depth, and so they'll be 2-1's a fair result.
The next game is between two teams in London that are okay. Jeff, what do you got for this one? There's a team called Tottenham Hotspur and another team called the West Ham Hammers. Well, and it is going to be played at the London Stadium. Good luck with Thomas Suchek.
Yeah, and Declan Rice.
And Antonio.
And Antonio.
And Benrahma.
And all those guys.
And if you lose this game, do they hop you? Because I'm sure that they're probably close to you in the tip. Oh yes, yes.
I think a good result for Spurs would obviously be a win. Obviously, that's a great result. But realistically, it's probably a 2-2 draw.
James, you agree with that 2-2?
I mean, doesn't Nuno go in streaks? Right, it was 3 wins, then it was 3 losses. Now it's 2 wins, right? So
3 wins. I think the real problem was with the lineups that he chose and the formations he chose for those 3 losses. He's not going to put out a 4-3-3 again. There's no chance in hell. We know the lineup. Like, it's not even a question unless there's an injury this week. But we know what players are going to play, and those players are good enough to beat West Ham. But they are still, obviously susceptible for goals, and Dyer having a brain fart, and they're not great at set pieces. So
2-2 draw.
2-2, but the reason why I'm not looking forward to it is not necessarily watching Spurs, potentially lose, but having to listen to the announcers talk about West Ham coming back in like the last 10 minutes of that game last season.
Oh, you're not going to get Lanzini.
Worldy, like to tie or whatever. I'm not looking forward to hearing about that.
So moving forward for the next game, let me say this.
Would you agree with me, Jarrett? 2-2 might be fair.
2-2's fair.
2-2's
It's going to be a crazy game. It's going to be the game I'm most looking forward to. For the next game, however, if West Ham win, they jump United. If Everton win, they jump United. And if Brentford win, they jump United. If United were to lose this week and other things happening, they could go from 6th all the way to 9th. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is very close to the edge. He's like playing Squid Game, and he's still moving in red light, green light. It's not a good look. I really think that this United-Liverpool game is going to be a big thing because Liverpool is on fuego. They lit it up today in the Champions League, scoring goals. Mo Salah, pound for pound, probably the best player on the planet right now, is scoring at will. Worldies back-to-back weeks. He's going to make Maguire cry, and I hope they don't play Wan-Bissaka because he's the biggest hack on the planet. And I just hope the game is interesting because last year I got super pumped up. It was like the 11:30 a.m. game here. I got up, I came over here, and Jeff and I fell asleep on the couch, or we did something else. We're like, this game sucks. So, James, do you think this game? Okay, let me rephrase this. Can United win at home against this Liverpool team currently?
The thing about this United team that I really hate is they just the last time I was on here, I was certain that Ole was going to get fired. Then they fluke a victory, and he pulls it out of his ass from somewhere. And so one of his ridiculous talents does something, saves his ass, and then he lumbers on for a little bit, and they do well. And then they're fundamentally a bad team, right? Fundamentally, he doesn't coach them. He's still in this job, and
yet they made it to the Europa final.
He seemed to be surprised in that game that Sevilla played for penalties, which we all knew was going to happen the whole time, right? The whole thing. So I think that my head says Salah scores a great goal. It's 2-0 Liverpool. This is what I keep saying is going to happen, and then Ole pulls it out and they win 1-0 and Ronaldo scores in the last minute and he saves his job for another week. So what am I going to go with, my head or my heart? I'm going to go with my head and say that they win 2-0. Liverpool. Yeah.
Jeff, what do you
think? Liverpool are just in a fine run of form. They're going to take this Champions League victory and smack down United 3-0. But I want to comment on Ole, because I think he's just treading water right now, and there has to be a point where they lose to another top 6 team. They obviously are underperforming. There's way too much talent to be on that field, to be this disorganized, to be this miscoached, right? Some of the things I've said this week: one, if their Champions League game goes poorly, and then I don't think he'll be sacked from the Champions League game, but because it's just a group stage. But if the Champions League game goes poorly and Liverpool goes poorly, there's a good chance that this could be it. But I do agree with you. Every time we say that, they go on like a winning streak of like a bazillion games, and suddenly they're the best team in the league. But the big thing with Ole, and I think a lot of people have realized, is that he's afraid of Cristiano Ronaldo. He is literally afraid of him. He's like afraid to take him out of the game. He's afraid to not start him. And even when it's clearly not working with Ronaldo up front, he will not take him out. So my whole thing with United is that Ronaldo was a terrible choice for them to make with the amount of talent they have in that field. It ruined the whole thing that they had going on, developing younger players up front and like linking the midfield with the four. It just doesn't work with Ronaldo. He's not that type of player. He doesn't. The biggest stat that I saw this week with Ronaldo, he has of attacking players in the league, he has the least number of presses in 90 minutes. Like the least number. Worse than Lukaku.
Worse than Lukaku?
Worse than Lukaku.
Lukaku doesn't move.
He has like 1 press per game.
Are you serious?
Yes, he's averaging like
How does he have abs like
one
that?
One and a half
dude,
presses
is he
per
roided?
game. You know what it is?
Dude,
he's afraid of getting hurt. He doesn't run. He just kind of trots around and then...
How is he so ripped?
He lifts. He's in the weight room.
What is he lifting?
That's the deal with Ronaldo.
Okay, so
that
was a long soliloquy. What do you think happens in the game?
3-0. I already told you. I said 3-0 Liverpool.
I'm going to go one better. I think it's going to be 4-0.
Ooh.
Just to throw something on top. United are really flat right now. They have this situation with Ronaldo, who I don't think he was a bad choice for them. I just don't think Ole's using him the best. And I think we have a real world case study in the last 12 months where Chelsea had all this talent and Frank couldn't steer the ship. Tuchel comes in and we were honestly like untouchable. So I just think a different coach maybe takes this amount of talent, reconfigures it, and pushes it in a different direction, and it's off and running. That's my take on it. But for this current game on Sunday, I don't think it's going to be a gouge your eyes out. I think Liverpool are going to put the show on, and I don't see how Ole isn't sacked. But like you said, James, the last time you were on, we were like, oh, he's definitely sacked. He's definitely sacked. Lampard wasn't even in the conversation. Chelsea was playing well. Lampard was Lampard was the first to go, right? He went before Ole and Arteta, and at that time we were like, oh, Ole and Arteta are gone. So normally when we hate on somebody in the pod, they end up doing really well. So,
and to be fair, Liverpool did not look invincible today when they played against Atletico.
Yeah.
Oh no, they didn't look invincible, but they looked like they can score goals.
They can score goals. Their defense is borderline.
United have 3 points out of 2 games. If they were to lose in the Champions League tomorrow to Atalanta,
which is possible because Atalanta,
which is super possible, and then they lose on Sunday, I do not think Ole has a job Monday by 5 p.m. That's my take, because then they're basically lining up for the Europa League at that point, or they're going to finish second, which is the same thing because you're going to get bounced out because they're going to play some big boy. They're going to play Bayern or
yeah, but you don't go down to Europa if you get bounced out after the group.
No,
stage.
that's what I'm saying. But I'm saying either way, they're setting themselves up for failure in a group that I think that they should win on paper. So they should be paper finishers of toppers of that group. But anyways, that's the week. It's exciting. A lot to happen. I wonder who's going to get fired first, Bruce or Ole? That's my last question. James? That's a good one.
I think that it's going to be Bruce.
I'm starting to it's Bruce.
I'm getting to the point where, we might be here like in 5 years when you have me back on to talk about Newcastle, or 7 years, Newcastle's first title, you know, and
Newcastle's first treble.
And we'll still be saying, and when is Ole going to get fired?
Maybe it's one of the situations where they just don't. They're trying to line somebody up right away, so they can't.
So they're just waiting.
They're waiting, and then they're like in the behind, you know. But maybe not.
Well, I think that's what's happening with Bruce. But yeah, with Ole, like, I think the problem is with Man United is that the Glazers don't care that much about winning. As long as the money's coming in, they don't really care. Like the Ronaldo deal is about selling shirts and about their merchandise. That's what that deal is clearly about. They didn't want City to get it because, you know, and it was about City not getting in it, and it was about getting the shirts. There's no real great soccer reason to do it. And same thing with Ole. When they don't qualify, when it really looks like they aren't going to qualify for the Champions League, that's when they'll pull the plug, because it's all about the money. That's all that matters at the end of it, you know? Yeah.
Agree.
Money talks.
That's it. So it's a full circle.
We started with money. We started with Arab money, and now we're back to Fenway Group money. No, not Fenway Group. Excuse me. Glazer money.
Similar. American money.
That U.S. greenback money.
Yep. Well, James, thanks for joining again.
And we'll see you in 7 years for the Newcastle treble, and Ole will still be coach.
Thank you.
Thanks, James.
Ciao. Thanks for listening to the Boys and Bolos podcast. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Patreon, Twitch, at Boys and Bolos.
If you'd like to be a guest, please reach out. You can hit us on any of the social media accounts that Jeff just mentioned, or email us directly at boysandbolos@gmail.com.
Thanks for listening, and see you next time.